right?
Yeah, just had to wait for the little recording prompt to go through because I always forget it's going to happen. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another live community classroom with Michaels. We have our friend Edie Eckman with us today, and she'll be teaching us how to make this Tunisian crochet hat. My name is Renee L. from Yarn Inspirations, and I'll be helping with any questions you might have during today's class. Please feel free to drop your questions in the chat, and I'll make sure that Edie answers them. While we're getting ready to kick things off, let us know where you're watching from. Over to you, Edie.
Hello, everybody, and I'm happy to see you. Happy to be working on this cute Tunisian hat. I think it doesn't even look Tunisian. I think it looks like a knitted hat, but it is using Tunisian knit stitch and Tunisian purl stitch, both of which we will do here today. I want to start out by saying you won't be able to keep up with me because we only have an hour to do this. And if you've never done Tunisian crochet, it's, you know, I'm just going to have to show you how to do it. You can always come back and watch the video later. So the recording will be there for you to watch as many times as you need. You can stop and pause and so on. So be sure to ask your questions in the chat. But if you're not quite keeping up with me, that's okay. You'll be able to go back and watch it later. So before I switch cameras, I just want to talk a little bit about Tunisian crochet in case you don't know about Tunisian crochet. Tunisian crochet is really kind of a combination between knitting and crochet. You use a Tunisian crochet hook, which looks like a crochet hook on one end, on the business end, but then it has this cable, kind of like a circular knitting needle, and then it has an end. You can even get interchangeable ones where you can take off the cable and put a hook on each end, but I'm just using this regular Tunisian crochet hook. You can also find Tunisian hooks that that are longer and straight. It's like a straight knitting needle with a cap on the end, or even a hook on the other end. So I am using this size, whatever it calls for in the pattern, size 10, 6mm hook. Generally speaking, when you're doing Tunisian crochet, you are going to want to use a larger hook than you would use if you were doing regular crochet. So for instance, with the yarn that I'm using that's called for in the pattern, this yarn right here, it's a worsted weight or medium weight yarn. Normally you might use like a 5mm or 5.5mm hook. I'm using a 6mm hook. So Tunisian crochet requires a larger hook. So that's just general rule of thumb there. I'll switch cameras so that you can see my hands, get my thing out of the way. And I'm going to just be working on the hook, and the extra stitches for the extra width would go onto this cable. Now, since I'm going to be doing a smaller piece, I probably won't be going much onto the cable, but your cable, the cable itself needs to be big enough to hold the number of stitches that you're going to be using. So this one's plenty long for a hat. To start with, I'm going to find the end of my yarn. I had it here just a minute ago. Of course, that went missing, right? I'm going to put a slip knot on my hook and start by chaining. So just a regular chain, just as you normally do when you crochet, you would chain the number of stitches. I always make sure that I chain loosely because I want to make sure that I'm not going to run into problems when it's time to come back and work into that chain. So I'm just going to do some number of stitches. Let's see, I probably want multiple here. Tunisian crochet is worked with what's called a forward pass and a return pass. Here's my foundation chain. My forward pass will go in this direction because I'm right-handed, and I'll be picking up loops. So I pick up loops, then the return pass, I'll have all these loops on my hook. It'll look like knitting. And then when I do the return pass, I will work each of those loops off. If you are left-handed, it's going to look the opposite. You're going to be working forward pass and then return pass. So if anybody's left-handed and can't understand it, maybe toward the end, I see Sharon waving her hand there. I can't see everybody, but I could see Sharon waving her hand. Sharon, yours is just going to be, you're going to be working in this direction, but I think you'll get it. Just flip your brain a little bit. All right, the first row for the forward pass. Now I'm reading the pattern. It says first row, forward pass, right to left. That's for right-handers. So left-handers are working left to right. Insert hook into second chain from hook. So not counting the loop on my hook and then skipping this first chain, I'm working into the second chain. If you look at the picture, it shows that you're working into the back bump of that chain. So here I am, there's the front of my chain. It looks like a series of V's. When I flip it over, I see that there's a bump right there. That's what I'm working into. So I'm going to insert my hook under that bump, yarn over the hook, and draw a loop through and leave it on the hook, okay, like this. Then insert hook into the next chain, yarn over, draw up a loop, and leave it on the hook. Each one of these, as I draw the yarn through, I want to make sure that I'm making that new stitch on the full part of the hook. You see how it's narrower right here? I want to make sure that it's going all the way up to the full part of the hook. I do that all the way across. So it can take a little bit. This is probably the hardest row. The first time you work any row, I think in crochet, the first row is the hardest one. Working into that foundation chain is always a little bit fiddly, especially since I put lotion on about 1 minute before the camera's turned on and my hands are slippery. That wasn't very smart of me. So I'm working all the way across here. And notice that I am filling up my hook with stitches. If you have a straight hook, that's fine as well. You just won't have stitches going onto your cable. You don't want to start by doing, oh, this calls for 72 or 76 change. I would not recommend doing that. You want to do a gauge swatch anyway. And if you've never done this particular type of Tunisian crochet, you want to practice some before you start working on your hat. So here I have put stitches on 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. I have 14 stitches. I'm saying that because I want to keep track of how many stitches I have. That is my forward pass from my first row. Normally in crochet, we would turn and work the other way. Except in Tunisian crochet, we always keep the right side facing. So I'm not going to turn. Instead, I'm going to change to the next page 2 of my pattern and work the return pass. This one is worked from left to right or right to left if you're left-handed. Yarn over and draw through 1 loop. That's kind of like my turning chain. So it's just yarn over, pull through 1. Now, the rest of the row goes like this. Yarn over and pull it through 2 stitches. 1, 2. Come back up to here. Yarn over, pull through 2 stitches. Yarn over, pull through 2. Each time I do that, I'm getting rid of a stitch. And each time I do it, I want to make sure that that loop goes up to the full diameter of my hook. I don't want to keep it right down there. I want to make sure it goes all the way up. So I do that all the way across for my return pass. All my return passes are going to be this way. Generally speaking, this is all you need to know for Tunisian. What we just did was the first row of Tunisian simple stitch, except we're going to be doing something else on the second row. So that's kind of our setup. There's my foundation chain, and here's my first row of Tunisian. you'll notice that it looks different from regular crochet. It has this vertical bar. So you see all those vertical bars there. And we're going to be paying attention to those vertical bars here in a minute when we do the second row. Okay, for the second row and the forward pass, we're going to work Tunisian knit stitch and Tunisian purl stitch ribbing. So we're going to do 2 rows of 2 stitches of Tunisian knit and then 2 stitches of Tunisian purl. The pattern instructions have the pictures here for you, but I'm going to demonstrate what each of those are. So Tunisian knit. This is Tunisian knit stitch above here, just to keep you from being confused. And this is Tunisian purl stitch here. But when I first looked at that, I thought that's not Tunisian knit stitch, but I was thinking it went below, but it's what's above there. Okay, so when we start a new row, we don't have to do a turning chain here. The turning chain was at this end. We do nothing here, and we always skip this first stitch here because that stitch is this one right here. For Tunisian knit stitch, I'm going to kind of spread this open. You can see that vertical bar right there, but when I open it up, can you see the back side of it right there? So there's kind of a V. There's a left loop and a right loop. I want to put my hook right smack between those two. Yarn over and pull up a loop. And then the next one, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to kind of open it up. The yarn's in back. I'm going to go in here, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Now, if I did that all the way across and then did a return pass, I'd have what's called a Tunisian knit stitch. You can see it looks kind of like a knit stitch because you're getting those V's that look like knit stitches. They look like stockinette stitch knit stitches. But we're doing Tunisian knit and then Tunisian purl. So those are my Tunisian knit stitches. Tunisian purl is a little bit trickier. Here's how that works. I bring the yarn to the front. Okay, it was in the back before. Now I'm going to bring it to the front. I'm going to put my hook into the same place here, except I'm going to go like this. And now notice the yarn's in front here, but I'm going to bring it around and pull it back through. Don't worry, I'll do that again. What you got there is a little bump. You see that little bump? So that looks like a purl stitch. I'm going to pause just a minute so you can see what that looks like. Let me do it again. I'm holding the yarn in the front as I go under the loop. So I'm just going sideways under that vertical bar and then bringing the yarn around, behind, and through like this. So if you're looking at the picture, you can see it goes like this, and then you pull it up through that loop. So now I have those 2 purl stitches. I'm going to do 2 knit stitches. The knits go straight through and up. The yarn's in the back, straight through and up. They're my knit stitches. Now it's time for purl. Forward, under just that front bar, around, and back through, leaving that loop on the hook. Another one here. There's 2 knits, 2 purls. Go straight through. There's my knit. Go straight through again. There's my knit. And then 2 purls. I'm going to go around here and then around here. Now, I probably didn't have the right multiple here and just have 1 stitch left. On the last stitch, even though it doesn't really tell you to do this, or you can't really see this in the diagram, I want to show you what you always do on the last stitch. You always want to go kind of through both. You see, if I go in there, I've got 2 loops on here. That's where you want to go for the last stitch. All right, whew. That was a lot of work trying to do knit 2, purl 2. There are my 2 knits, purl. I can read my work. I can see those are smooth, those are bumpy, those are smooth, those are bumpy. Those of you who know me know I'm always talking about reading your work. So I'm trying to show you that that looks like knits and that looks like purls. Now we just do a final or return pass the way we did before. So the forward pass was hard. The return pass is the same thing all the time. Yarn over, pull through 1. That's my turning chain. Then yarn over, pull through 2 all the way across. So this is the row where you don't have to think, or the pass where you don't have to think, because a forward pass and a return pass together are what make up a row. So this is not 2 rows, it's just 1 row. It's the first half and the second half. So when I come back across here, I'm going to mention something that tends to happen, or at least it tends to happen for me. And that is that this right edge, or the beginning edge, gets really loose. You see how loose that stitch is compared to this side. And if I keep going, it's going to be longer on this side than on this side. So as I work these first stitch or 2 on this side, I want to be really, I want to tighten that down a little bit to make sure that it is going to stay, not get too loose there. So there's my first forward pass and return pass in pattern. Let's do another one. And I think, am I looking a little unfocused here, Renee? I'm trying to see if I can.
Yeah, I can see.
Okay. All right, so here we go again. Let's do a knit stitch. And now I'm starting to read my work. I can see that's a knit stitch, knit. And again, I'm tightening down on that a little bit just to make sure this doesn't get too loose. Knit, knit, yarn forward. Then I'm going to go under just that bar, purl, purl. This does get easier with practice. Then knit, knit, yarn forward, purl, purl, knit, knit, purl, purl. Then that last stitch, I want to work through, right, just like that. Because if I do under 2 loops like that, it's going to make a nicer edge for me. And I want to make sure that that's loose enough. I don't want that to be too tight. So I'm trying to balance the beginning and ending edge to make sure that I don't get too short on one side and too long on the other. This is why it's important to do a swatch, especially if you've never done Tunisian crochet before. You want to practice on your swatch so that you can make sure you know what the stitch pattern is. And of course, also so you can get gauge, because it would be a shame to do all this and make the whole hat and then not have it fit. So you definitely want to work on the gauge too. All right, return pass. Yarn over, pull through 1, then yarn over, pull through 2, all the way across. And however you hold your hook, I am normally, when I'm crocheting with a regular hook, I am a pencil grip person. I hold my hook like this, but when I do Tunisian, I'm a knife grip person. So whatever way works for you in terms of holding your hook in your yarn, you may find you do it slightly differently when you're working with Tunisian. Here you can kind of see the stitch pattern. You have the knits on the knits and you have the purls on the purls, and that's what's going to create that ribbed look. Those are the knit stitches, and then those are the purl stitches. Any questions so far?
We just had a question from Haley. At the end, do we go into the chain? So I'm assuming the last row we just did, last pass.
Yeah, so you've worked into the chain all the way across. And then when you get to the very end, when you're doing this pass, where you want to go is that the chain is kind of sitting there weirdly. It's a little stitch. You want to work right here so that you have 2 loops over your hook. So you're not going here, you're going here. Okay.
Oh, perfect.
And that's
very
going to
easy
give you a fine little, a nice little edge there. So the pattern says, let me read the pattern here. You're going to do that forward pass and return pass, that knitting and purling all the way across. And it's Tunisian knit, Tunisian purl. And you're never turning, right? It's always the right side facing. And you work until the hat is however long it says, so 5 or 6.5 inches. It's interesting to me that they give you a child size and adult size, but you could certainly make it any size you wanted. You just use more stitches or fewer stitches. But then it becomes time to do some shaping. We have to do some increase or decreasing. So I'm going to do, with the magic of, whatever you call it, the magic of TV. Here I have another piece already made. It's a little wider so I can decrease. You can also see that pattern starting to form here. So let's say I've done my hat, however long it needs to be. I've done my return pass. By the way, I always like to stop. If I have to get interrupted, I would rather finish a return pass and end with just the 1 loop on the hook, because otherwise those stitches might get distorted if I have a bunch, kind of in the middle of a row. So I'd just rather stop right here. It's also easy to put a stitch marker in here in case you think you're going to lose your hook. It's just easier to do that. Okay,
Edie,
yes.
before we move on, just so I didn't lose the place, Karen asked, on the forward wrap around, after wrapping the yarn around, do you pull it over or under the bar?
I'm not sure what question you're asking, but let me do it again, and maybe that you can yell when I'm at that point or something.
Okay.
So on the forward pass, you're going, if you open that up, you can see that V. So you do a yarn over like this. Okay. And then the purl is a little weird because it's forward. I'm just going to hold it forward. You're going here. And then if you look at the written or the picture instructions, you'll see it comes around here, it goes to the back, and then you do a yarn over and pull through. So it's kind of like you bring it forward, then go under, then bring it to the back and do a yarn over. That would be another way of describing that.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Okay. And hopefully that answered that question, because it's a little confusing because these are just pretty straightforward. But then when you get to this one, you have to kind of do that forward back thing. I also see that I did. Thank you for whoever pointed that out, Judy. The last 3, it says to do this all the way across to the last 3 stitches and Tunisian knit stitch 3 times, which is exactly what I did here. Just on this sample, I had the wrong stitch multiple. So yes, you're going to work knit 2, purl 2, and then to the last 3 stitches, and you're going to do 1, 2, 3 knits, which is what I was talking about. When you're working like that, you are working that is a Tunisian knit stitch. Basically, you're working straight through like that. Thank you for pointing that out, Judy. Okay, so now we're doing the shape top, which is on page 2 of the pattern. We're working a forward pass. It tells me to work the rib pattern across 8 stitches, then skip next stitch. So what does that mean? It means work 1, 2, yarn forward, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, then skip next stitch. Normally I would do a stitch there, but I'm going to skip it. But now I have to be able to read my pattern to see what I do. So I don't continue with knit 2, purl 2. I skip one stitch, then I do a knit, and then purl, purl, knit, knit, purl, purl. And let's see, I've lost track of how many stitches I've done, but that's okay. I can go back and read my work. So I did 2, 4, 6, 8, skip 1, 2, 4, 6. And where am I? Knit. So there's where I skipped 2, 4, 6, 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. Now skip another one. So I'm skipping this one. I can see that the next stitch is a purl. So it's work 6 in pattern, skip 1. And you have to be able to see what your pattern is so you can pick up where you need to. And it's so much easier if you can read your fabric rather than trying to read the pattern or keep tick marks or something to see where you are. I'll let a knot show up here. Get rid of that knot. I don't know how that knot got there. So that's something I did. That knot was not there before with the yarn. Okay. So where am I here? Again, I was talking, I lost my place. Let's go back and read the work. There's the stitch I skipped. 2 purls, 4, 6, 8. So now I'm skipping this purl stitch and do another purl stitch. And I don't have the right number of the right multiple, but it tells you to do that 8 times. Work in pattern to last 9 or 4 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I'm not going to skip that one because I don't have the right number. So it tells you to do that and then work in pattern across to last 4 stitches. I'm not sure exactly what it means here. I had not gotten this far before. Do not turn. It seems like it would tell you, I'm not sure what they're going to be doing with this, but we'll figure that out. All right, return pass for all rows. It's going to be the same thing. So yarn over once and pull through, then yarn over and pull through 2. And I am thinking that they want you to work that whole thing. So let me go back and double check that. Let's get all the way through here. Renee, let me know if there are any questions as I'm working here. Oh, let me say one more thing. Notice when there's that stitch I skipped and it creates a little hole because I didn't pick up a stitch here. I'll show you again when I get to this other one that I skipped. It's not really going to show, but there's another one I skipped. But when I yarn over and pull through 2, it's just going to kind of close that up. It's going to not be a problem. There are other ways to decrease in Tunisian besides just skipping a stitch, but we're not going to go into that today. That would be in a different project probably. Okay, so there is my forward pass decrease, and then my return pass. On the next forward pass, you're going to work across but you're going to work across 7 stitches and skip, work across 7 stitches and skip, and so on. I want to check something though. I am thinking, and again, we're doing this on the fly, so Renee, you can stop me if I need to. It says to work rib pattern across 2 last 9 or 4 stitches. I think it means work rib pattern across last 9 or 4 stitches. In other words, the way that this pattern is written, it has me not working the last however many stitches. And the same thing on these other ones, it has me not working pattern across to the last whatever stitches means don't work those last stitches, but I'm thinking it means work across those last however many stitches. I'm going to do some really quick math, and this is, don't fret, because this is like real life. What happens when you think the pattern's wrong, right? Does that ever happen to you where you just think, wait a minute, wait a minute, I'm trying to switch my face. Where's my face here? Do you ever get a pattern and you think, this doesn't make any sense. It's not making any sense to me. I can't do it. I can't do it because the pattern's wrong. Okay. Yes, you can. You just have to use your brain a little bit. So what I'm thinking, I could totally be wrong, but we have time. So we're going to work through this together. What I'm thinking is, you see how I worked across to this spot and I didn't work these last ones? That's going to make a weird edge here. And I don't think that's what they mean, because I didn't work these last stitches because I'm following the pattern. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little math, and I'm going to say, hang on, we're going to do this. I'm going to do the math right here on the camera. This is like real life scary stuff, because I don't necessarily like doing math if I haven't planned ahead. Okay. This is me totally not working all the way through. All right, if I started with, here's how we think about this. If I started with, let's do the child size, 72 stitches, okay? And my stitch pattern, I have 1 selvage stitch on the right-hand edge, and I have 3 selvage stitches on the left-hand edge, or in other words, I had the 1 here and I had the 3 here, and all the ones in the middle are multiple of 4, because I had knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. So that's a multiple of 4. So if I take 72 minus 4, okay, and then divide all that. So 72 minus 4, can't even do that in my head. That's 68. And divide it by 4. Okay, that was 17 repeats. Okay. So as I do that, I'm going to have 17 repeats. That's not really what I need to know. What I really need to know is if I had 72 stitches and I had that 1 selvage stitch, and then I work in pattern across 8 stitches in pattern, and then skip 1, right? That's what the pattern tells me to do. It tells me to work in rib pattern across 8 stitches and then skip 1. That's going to tell me that that is a total of 9 stitches. It uses 9 stitches. 9 stitches used up 8 times. Let's see, 9 times 8 is 72. Ooh, that's not going to work. So, because it says work rib pattern across to 9 stitches. So I think we're going to have to work on this pattern, Renee. Can we get correction to it at some point.
Absolutely. We'll loop in
Because I
design
think,
team.
I think there's an error in here. And I apologize for not finding it earlier. I'm not a tech editor. Oh, well, I'm not a Yarnspirations tech editor.
It happens all the time.
So what I'm saying is that work rib pattern for the small size, work rib pattern across 8 stitches, and then skip a stitch, uses up 9 stitches. It tells me to do that 8 times. Well, that's 72 stitches right there. So I don't have that selvage stitch. I'm using too many here. So that tells me, I think there's an error in the child size. What was the adult size? Let's figure that out too. 76 stitches. That's going to be a little bit better, but there's still going to be a little bit of an error because you're not going to be working in rib pattern across the 9 stitches. I think it's the 8 work 8 times. I think that might need to be 7 times, but we'll have to figure that out. I can't do that live on camera. Okay. So never mind that. Let's go back to the decreasing. Basically, what's going to happen is you're still going to do those decreases. So before, if we did it every 8 stitches, here we're going to be working knit, knit, then yarn forward, purl, purl, knit, knit, and let's see how many was that. 2, 4, 6, and it tells me to work in pattern. This is 2 across 7 stitches. So I've done 2, 4, 6, 7, and then skip 1. And then you'll do the same thing. But remember, if I'm skipping this one, it's not at this point, it's not knit 2, purl 2, because you have to read your knitting or your Tunisian crochet. If I skip this one, I can see that this is a knit stitch, but then I'm right back at a purl stitch. So you're having to stay in pattern. Whenever you're working any kind of Tunisian or crochet or knitting pattern, and it says to work in pattern, that doesn't mean that you absolutely need to do exactly what the pattern stitch is as written. It means to do the pattern as you've established it. So because we established it here, this little point right here, you can see that it goes from knit 2 to purl 1 to knit 1 to purl 2 because of our decreases. So all of those rounds or rows, as you work up, all those additional decrease rows are going to have some interruption of that knit 2, purl 2 pattern, and you'll just have to watch what you're doing. The good news is, by the time you have done however many inches, 5 inches of it in pattern like this, you'll really know how to do it. You will have had plenty of practice to figure out what that looks like when you're doing this stitch pattern right here. Okay. All right. Questions so far?
There was a little bit of chatter about math. Oh, did you respond to this? Otherwise, no, just some chatter about math in the chat, and I think we figured out the stitch count, so we're good.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think, and again, it's really hard for me to do this like on the spur of the moment when I see it, and I'm having to do it under pressure, as it were. I love doing the math. I just don't like doing it under pressure when 200 people are watching me and I'm trying to think through it. Another thing that I thought of, but I still think there's an error, is that the pattern could be saying work in pattern across 8 stitches, and they're counting that first stitch as one of the first of the 8, but I still don't think that's going to solve the problem. The main thing I would say is almost anything you do from that point on is going to be okay. As in terms of decreasing, it's probably going to be fine, but it doesn't mean work to last whatever stitches. It means work in pattern across, because I'm pretty sure that they mean for that edge to be straight because you're going to be sewing it. If I am wrong about that, I apologize if I have steered you wrong. I don't have the actual finished hat to look at, but I don't think they meant for that edge to curl, but maybe they did. And maybe we need to work that and see what happens. I don't know. It just doesn't seem to me that the math is working out. So, sorry. Let's see. If somebody else is working out the math, we can do that. I would, and in terms of updating it, I'm pretty sure that your inspirations will be getting on that and checking it. I don't know what the process there is, Renee.
Yeah, we'll submit and then we'll have them check the math and we'll get that revised and updated.
Right. Okay.
And I'm going to reshare the pattern link into the chat because that's where the update will show.
Okay. Does anybody have any other suggestions about what they mean, or do you understand what I'm thinking the problem is? And you'll have to type that in. And as you're maybe typing that, I want to point out something that happens. As a matter of fact, this is something I shared, I think, on my Facebook and Instagram yesterday, which is sometimes patterns have a clear error in your head, right? Because you get in your mind the way something's meant to work, and you look at it and you go, this is wrong. I can't do it. I absolutely can't do it. And you put it down and you come back to it the next day and you go, oh, no, it's not wrong after all. Which, could be something that happens to me right now too. I was just working on a pattern, tech editing a pattern for somebody this morning, and she had used the word, you worked across something, and then she said, slip last however many stitches to needle. Well, she meant slip the previous ones, and I thought she meant slip the remaining ones. So when she said last, she meant the last stitches you worked. And I thought the last stitches across the row. So the way patterns are worded they can be correct, but they can be misunderstood in an incorrect way, or understood in an incorrect way, but not in a way that would be incorrect. I don't know if that even makes any sense, but it can be ambiguous language, right? And so the pattern writer is intending one thing, the pattern follower is understanding something else, and they could both be right and they can both be wrong, but you just have to figure out what's going on. So that's a real life pattern problem that happens all the time. Patterns have errors, and it's almost impossible for them not to, even when they've been tech edited. It's so hard to get them right. So that's something we all struggle with. Okay. Let's see. I'm just trying to see do I need to go over the purl stitch again? I feel like that's the one that's really tricky. I want to show it one more time here. Right, so I've got to do the knits, knit, knit, and you can tell it's a knit because you end up with those V's. The purl is bring the yarn forward, move it out of the way. Then I'm working under that vertical bar, bringing the yarn around to the front, or it's already in front, around like this. And then do a yarn over. So it's kind of like it's coming forward. You're going under the stitch. It's coming back, and then you're doing your yarn over. And then it's pretty easy when you get to those knit stitches. And here I am at I started to do a knit and I was like, oh, no, there is the purl. There is the purl and then knit. So you can go back and watch the video as many times as you need to figure out how to do that purl stitch. It does get easier. Here you can see again, I went to, we decreased right through here. Okay. All right, any other questions?
Susan Baird asked, you'd have an additional decrease in the child size, but not in the adult ? So clarifying.
We'll have to figure out. I think it's just going to depend on how many, again, hard for me to do the math in my head or
Absolutely
here, but I think it might be, I didn't check the adult size. I was just running into a problem with the child size. So whatever you do, it's probably just going to curve in like this and not be that terrible, but you may end up with not the same number of decreases or with some not included in that decrease. And it might be 7 stitches for the child or 8 decreases for the child and sorry, other way around, 7 for the child, 8 for the adult. I don't know without doing the math. So I can't figure out that. I say, how long would the hook have to be for the adult size hat? The hat is probably going to be, let's see, we can look. Oh, it doesn't give us finished dimensions. Generally speaking, an adult size hat is going to fit like a 22 or 23 inch head, and the hat may be around 20 inches. Having said that, though, the nice thing about these Tunisian hooks is that, or with the cables anyway, you can scoot a bunch of stitches in a little space. You see how I have those stitches all scrunched up? So it doesn't have to be 20 inches long for a 20-inch wide hat, because you can scrunch a bunch of those loops onto the cable. So I could have, I don't know, 100 or more stitches on this cable because they can just scrunch up. They just need to not be scrunched up when you're working in the working part of the hook. But you probably need something longer than a 10-inch straight hook. You probably do need one with a cable of some sort. Okay. Okay. Anything else?
I think that's it. I think we're all doing our individual math to
Right.
try to problem solve, which is great. So we will work that out and we will find whatever way we can to share the updated PDF with y'all.
Right. Yeah. And I see Sharon saying, well, the Tunisian rib scrunch up in the same manner as knit 2 purl. No, it doesn't behave the same way. So it looks like rib, but it's much stiffer and much thicker. It doesn't, I might give a little bit, but it's not. Tunisian fabric is not the same as knit fabric, and it's not the same as crochet fabric. It's actually thicker than either of those, and usually less forgiving depending on the hook size you're using. So those are good questions. I want to tell everybody today was my birthday, so it was fun to share this with you. And I hope you will join me on my newsletter, which is edieeckman.com/newsletter. And I hope that I will see you all on social media. I'm Edie Eckman everywhere. You can find me. And Renee will tell you more information about your inspirations. I want to thank everybody for joining me today for the Tunisian crochet hat, and we will fix that. And if there's not an error, I apologize for being confused. I want to put that in there too. If it turns out there wasn't an error, just my bad. It's my birthday, and give me some grace on that.
It happens.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Edie. Thank you so much. And thanks to all of you for joining us today. I think we got to see a really interesting problem solving session, because this is real life. This is what happens, sometimes, or you know, we mess up and we have to kind of go back. And I find that these classes are actually very valuable as the ones that what was supposed to happen didn't happen, but we came away with some good info. So thank you again so much for joining us. Don't forget to share your work, anything that you make after our classes with hashtag Make It With Michaels and hashtag Yarnspo. That's YARNSPO. Can tag your inspirations. We're everywhere. Show us your stuff. We love to see everything that you're working on. And just a reminder that you can find more classes on michaels.com and the recording of today's class at michaels.com/classes. All right, bye y'all.
Bye-bye.